when we look for people and we search far and wide, we have a young lady who has been blessed with wanting to serve Jesus in her life. We actually brought her in from college, and she'd like to share her testimony, as she also shared her voice today, too. And I would like to introduce you to our very own Sarah Dawber. The first... I was reminiscing this morning, and I had the opportunity of singing with her in Vacation Bible School. I think that was it. But I wasn't a student then.
So, as Linda said, my name is Sarah. I'm really excited to be speaking to you today. I have some notes in a notebook. I apologize if that distracts anybody. I'm going to step up here. Is that okay? Okay. So, as many of you know, I was basically raised in this church. I've been involved in this church. I've been a part of this church for most of my life. And because of that, this church has been a huge part of the woman that I'm still growing into. And I mean, I look around the room and I see so many faces of women who have had such a huge impact on my life. And that started a long time ago. And I'm in my final semester of college at Dawber University. We made it into the NCAA tournament this year for basketball. Lost in the first round, but it's okay. We're there. But thinking about graduating college and closing that chapter of my life, it was really interesting. Yesterday, Linda told me that the theme for today is new beginnings, and that's what I've been thinking about lately. So it's really, it's perfect that I get to speak to you, and it's really perfect that I get to share my testimony, because so much of where I'm at and where I'm going has to do with this church. So before I get into that, if you ladies would bow your heads with me, great. Father God, I thank you for bringing me back here. I thank you for the amazing things that you have used this church and its members for in my life, and I pray that as I speak today, God, that you would reveal a little bit more of yourself through me and to me, God, and that the words that are spoken be the message of you and the message of your Son and the work that you've done, God, and that it not be about me and not be to glorify me. And I just lift up the rest of the statement that it be all in the name of your Son. And pray this in Jesus' name. All right. So, for starters, I was born and raised in Massac Beach, down the crest that way. I was baptized Catholic because my mom is part of the Catholic Church. And when I was really young, my father started coming here. I know that a lot of you knew my dad. So he started bringing my brother and I here, and we were kids, and obviously we're not super excited about the idea of coming to church with our dad. But he put us through the confirmation process, and that was definitely the start of my learning about God, but it was well before I ever had any interest in him or in who he was, in what role he was going to play in my life. It was something that I did because it was what Dad wanted me to do. And looking back at something that I took advantage of, and I regret that, but it's okay. So when I was 12, so after I had been confirmed, I was officially a member of Grace Lutheran Church, and I still came every once in a while. When I was 12, my father passed away. And I was blessed with 12 years with the best father, the best earthly father that anyone could ask for. But after that happened, I think God really pushed me to think about his role in my life. And I still think back to a youth group led by Billy Farrell back in the day, where they had posted signs, I think they were numbers or something, on the wall to rate like how true you think the statement is. And you were supposed to walk up to the number, and one of the questions was like, God is the most important thing in my life. And a group of us walked over to whatever was the most true number. I think it was a 1. It was a long time ago. I was 12. But, and someone challenged us on it. Someone called us out on it. And thinking back, that probably wasn't true. God probably wasn't the most important thing in my life at the time. And I mean, most of the time I still put things in front of God. But in that moment, I was thinking like, I lost my dad, and God is, like my dad was a huge part of my life. I was like, God is my father. He is the only father that I have, and he is huge in my life, and I still don't know what that means, and I still don't know what that looks like, but that's something that I need to be able to say right now. And so that still sticks with me, because I think that was the first time I was ever like, no, God is important to me, God matters. So I don't know where Billy is, but if he's in here, I don't think he is, but I want to thank him for that. Then, I don't remember if it was before or after that. Things get messy date-wise, but Billy took the youth group to Excel, which is a Christian youth conference in Saratoga Springs. And we were in the middle of a worship set led by Rebecca St. James. And she did an altar call, and I remember just somehow I'd gotten separated from the group, so I was in the middle of a bunch of strangers in front of this stage, just like crying, thinking about Jesus, and thinking about everything that Jesus had done, and all of, like, looking back at all of what I viewed as these horrible things that had happened in my life, and how beautiful Jesus still was. And I was young, and so it didn't register to me what that fully meant, and I still don't think I know what that fully means. But that was the moment where I decided that I was going to live my life as someone who really believes that. I was going to live my life proclaiming Jesus as Lord, and motivated to share that with the people that I know, the people in my life. And so I came back, and the bus ride back was great. I was really excited. And as soon as I stepped off the bus, I remember feeling this huge burden on my chest, thinking about all of the people in my life who don't know Jesus. I'm like, how am I, this little girl, supposed to go and tell people and make people understand? And so I was crying in my room about this. And I came out of my room, and my mom stopped me. And she was like, what's wrong? And so I was explaining this to her. And she was like, I don't know that much about the experience that you're going through. I haven't been there, but I know that God wouldn't want you to do that alone. Like, God puts people in your life to help you with that and to bring you through that and to come behind you and support you in that. And that was what really encouraged me to actually get involved in the youth group here. There's Billy. I was talking about you before. Really encouraged me to get involved in the youth group and in the programs that we had going. So that was a really cool first step. And not long after that, the church hired on a full-time youth leader, John Bernor, who I know a lot of you do. And he was so amazingly influential in the growth of my life. He had the time and the resources to pour into the youth and to develop us into people who really knew what it meant to be Christians, who really knew what it meant to live a life loving and serving God, was genuinely interested in where we were at with God, and it was some of the most incredible spiritual years of my life at the time. And yeah, so my high school career was basically that, was learning what it meant to be a Christian, learning what it meant to serve God in a world that doesn't know Him. We did mission trips, and we did street evangelism once a week, and we did prayer for the community, and it was just a very active group regarding outreach and sharing the gospel. So that was really, really exciting, and that kind of led me into deciding where I wanted to go for college. I was like, I definitely want to go to a Christian school. I don't want to, be tempted by the things of the world, and I was a little legalist back then. It's okay. And I ended up applying to 4 different Christian schools. One of them I decided I didn't want to go to because I had a conversation with someone in the music department, and I disagreed with her theology on one thing. And I was like, no, I'm not going there because I don't want to be taught by you, which was harsh, but God worked through it. And I visited 2 of the other schools and wasn't crazy about them, and actually Brenda Jones and Denise Corcoran both talked to me about Valparaiso. And I had applied there because Katie Corcoran, Denise's daughter, made me. Because TJ Corcoran, Denise's son, was going there at the time. So she was like, oh, TJ goes there, you have to go there, you have to go there. So I applied, and I was like, it's in Indiana, I'm not going to school in Indiana. But I remember talking to Brenda and Denise about it, and they were just like, this would be a great school for you. We keep talking about how well you would fit there. And so I made my mom fly me out to Indiana before I would commit to any other school. I was like, I have to at least see it. I have to at least know. And I fell in love with it as soon as I got there. And it was one of those things where it was rainy and we had missed our tour and my mom had thrown her back out. And it was, for all intents and purposes, the worst campus visit I've had. But in that moment, God was like, this is where I want you. This is where I'm calling you to go. And my mom was still unsure, so I was like, all right, we'll wait for the financial packages to come in. If Messiah offered me more money than Valparaiso, I'll go there. It wasn't even close. Like God has provided and continues to provide so immensely for me financially at school. God was amazing with financially, so it was no contest. She was like, okay, I guess you're going to Indiana. So I ended up in Indiana, and my journey there would take up the next 3 hours of your life to just skim the surface. And so just a couple of key things that have happened to me at school. One of my first days there, I was walking back from a night class and I heard worship music over by the library. And I was like, oh, I like worship music. I'll go check that out. So I walked over and there's a bunch of international students worshiping, and I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. These are all international students. But I stayed anyway, and it was really amazing. And at the end, this girl came up to me. She was like, hi, I'm Ashley. And I was like, hi. I just felt like I was supposed to come over and talk to you. Do you have a church in the area? No, I don't have a church in the area, and I've been looking for one. You should come to church with me. Okay, I'll do that. So a couple days later, I went to church with her and her friends, and I didn't end up staying at that church for multiple reasons, but Ashley ended up being one of the most important people in my life. I went to a Campus Crusade meeting. I don't know if you guys have heard of Campus Crusade for Christ. It's an international organization, and it does campus ministry. So I went to one of their meetings, and I walked in, and there was Ashley, and she was like, hi! How are you? I'm good. And I actually actively tried not to be in her Bible study. I was like, one, kind of scare me, and two, I want to meet different people. But circumstances had it at the Bible study I tried to get into had too many people. So they were like, we have some people to volunteer to go into Ashley and Kenya's Bible study. And I was like, I guess I'll do that. So I did, and halfway through the year, Ashley started talking about this thing called discipleship, which was basically like meeting one-on-one with an older Christian and just doing life together, like accountability and going through scripture or going through a book, but just talking about the things that were going on in life and the things that God was doing. And so about, I guess at the beginning of the second semester, Ashley asked me if I wanted to do discipleship with her. And I said yes. And then she asked me if I wanted to join the leadership on crew, and I said yes. And those were two of the most enormous decisions of my life still. The things that I learned meeting with Ashley and just getting to talk through things that I had never talked through before, and being asked questions that I had never been asked before that were challenging me in ways that I couldn't even begin to imagine, was beautiful. It really, really was. Just having time to sit there, like, the reason that you were sitting here with me right now is to talk about what's going on in my life, and to talk about the things that God is doing in my life. And no one's paying you to be here, like, you are just genuinely interested in that and in seeing me grow as a Christian. And that was amazing. And joining the leadership team, I got to know Christians my age who were so on fire for the Lord. So, like, in ways that I had never even imagined. Like, coming from Long Island, I had an interesting view of what friendship looked like. And friendship was like, hey, jerk. What's up, jerk? And things like that. And these girls on the leadership team just love on each other. Like, you look so beautiful today. Thank you for praying. That was so wonderful. Oh, I so appreciate the way that you serve other people. And I was weirded out at first. But I grew to see, like, this is what God's love looks like. Like, Long Island, at least what I have grown up in, has a different way of showing affection, and that's great for people in that. But when you go to other places, that's not the way you show love to people, which I learned very quickly. But just seeing this, like, this still isn't the way that the world shows love. This thing that these girls are doing. That's not how we show love, but it's beautiful, and that's how God shows love. And it really, really changed the way that I viewed my relationships with people. So that was the first little talking point that I had in college. And then after my sophomore year of college, that summer, I took a trip to Wildwood, New Jersey with Campus Crusade again. And that, basically, during that summer, God changed the direction that my life was going in. And I want to continue to thank this church for that as well. I came before you before that summer while I was raising money and said, like, this is how much I need, this is what God is calling me to, but I can't do it by myself. And everyone in the congregation rallied behind me, and I remember when I ended up being over-supported, I had more support than I needed, and that was such a beautiful thing. But I walked in, and most people had like 5 or 6 checks, and I had, again, 27 checks from all different people who just wanted to help me and support me and encourage me in what I was doing. And so that summer, God introduced me to a deaf girl. Her name was Kenna, and she's still one of my really good friends. And just really opened my eyes to the deaf community in general, and to the lack of, the Christian church's lack of outreach to the deaf community. And that was something that God really, really laid on my heart. And kept, like, pushing me toward doing something for the deaf community. Before that, my plan was to be a music teacher. Like, through and through, that was it. I was going to be a music teacher. But that summer, I started seeing, like, things outside of the world that I've known. And realized that, like, I can't know that there's this group of people who aren't being reached by the Christian church, like, making, I'm not going to say no effort, because there are churches who do a wonderful job of deaf outreach, but less than 2% of the deaf community attends a Christian church. And that's not their fault. That's, from where I'm coming from, that's the church's lack of knowledge about it and lack of realization that it's our job to make services available. And so I decided pretty much at the end of the summer that I want to work as a sign language interpreter and work in churches starting deaf outreach programs, which if I still don't know what that's going to look like, but I have some ideas, so if you have questions about that, I'm not going to worry with it now, but you can ask me later. And so that was really huge, and so I went back to school thinking about that and thinking about what that was going to look like. And I met this woman randomly, came up to one of my crew Bible studies and said, "Hey, does anyone here know sign language?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm learning it." She was like, "Wow, that's really cool. Can we talk later?" Yeah, so I met her downstairs, and she knew sign language, and she worked as a sign language interpreter in a church and was losing her hearing. And so she wanted like services to take classes and to learn more. So I gave her the information that I had about a deaf service in the area. And she was like, "And I would really love people to sign with on a weekly basis. Is that something that you would be interested in?" Yes. That is absolutely something that I would be interested in. And that was the beginning of my junior year. And me, her, and a few other girls still meet every week. We sang songs and we learned words together, and we did countries a while back. But yeah, so that moment of just, we're sitting here in the random furthest back corner of the biggest building on campus. And she walked up and just, I don't know, it was amazing. She was like, "I just felt God told me that I should come talk to you guys about it." And God has really shown himself to me in a lot of ways like that. So yeah. And so now I am on the path, starting my journey to becoming an interpreter, discipling a girl named Caitlin. She's a sophomore right now, and she has joined the crew leadership team, and we meet every week, just the same way that Ashley did with me. And I think that it's such a beautiful picture of like the work that God has done in my life, because I didn't even know what discipleship was when I went to Dawber, and didn't know what it looked like, didn't know how you could. I knew what the disciples were, I knew who they were, but I didn't know that that was a thing that people still did. And I think that one thing, like, I've become really passionate about evangelism and about discipleship. Crew has a model called "Would Build Send," basically human souls to Christ. You build them up through discipleship, and then you set them out to do evangelism again. And that's something that I've become really passionate about. I'm so sorry, I don't remember why I just started talking. Just let me have notes. Close your notes. But I did. I mean, I've gotten really passionate about that. And I'm at a church in Valpo, not in Valpo, in Michigan City, which is a half hour out of Valpo, that is really passionate about that. And what it looks like to win souls, and instead of just, I was having a conversation with Alexa earlier today, instead of just, fire and brimstone, if you don't love Jesus, you're going to hell, like caring about people and loving people and showing God's love in practical ways. And I think that the idea of that kind of, because I need something to tie together what I've been talking to you about for the last 20 minutes, I think that idea ties it all together. The way that I've been affected by people just coming up to me randomly and talking to me about Jesus. The way that I've been affected by people coming up to me and caring about what's going on in my life. The way that I've been affected by people building me up in the Lord. The way that this church has done for me for years. The way that I've been affected by love, by God's love, and by people who desire to see me understand that and to see me feel that. And so, moving forward from here, I don't want to see anyone not be able to get that message. So moving forward from here, I will hopefully, ideally, God willing, be working to make that message available to people who it hasn't been available before. And it's something that I'm so excited about. And that 2.5 years ago, if you had told me that I was going to be doing deaf ministry, I would have said you were out of your mind. True story, when I found out that there was going to be a Deaf Girl on project, I was like, I really hope this is a big project and I don't have to talk to her. I didn't know how, I didn't know any sign language, I don't know how to talk to a deaf person, I don't really want to try. And it was horrible, it was. But that's what in my heart, I was like, I don't really want to work toward talking to this girl if I can avoid it. And so, as we were driving down, my small group leader called me and she was like, hey, my name is Sarah too. The other girls in your Bible study are going to be Erin, she's also a musician, and Kenneth, she's deaf. And I was like, I guess I'm not avoiding that. But it was amazing. And God sees those things in your heart that you say, God, I don't want to do that. And he says, well, that's what you need to do. And I see that with where I'm going in my life. For the entire summer, that summer, I fought God on that. And I said, God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to reach out to people who I don't know their language. They can't hear me. Like, you blessed me with a voice. Why can't I, sing? These people can't. That's so ironic. Like, I'm a music major, and I'm going to do deaf ministry. But that's how God works, and He works with love, and He works through people who are willing to reach out, and that I'm well over the time that I asked them for. And so that's that. Thank you so much.
It's funny how she says random, coincidence, just happened. I think when Savani was talking about the bad words of submission, I think when you are a follower of Jesus Christ, the bad words are random, coincidence, and by chance. And we have the wonderful opportunity of inviting back our speakers, Dan and Sahani, for singing.